Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, let's go. Thank you very much. Sascha, for taking the time with me
Pleasure.
today. It's a great pleasure for me too. So yeah, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me.
No worries. I'm excited, especially because Clement, which is our friend in common, I think he knows us each other pretty well. So
Hmm.
he might have seen something that we weren't aware of it.
Yeah, let's find out what it is, but I'm sure there is.
Exactly, exactly. I was thinking about starting really easy, as I said before the episode. Could you just present yourself a little bit? Tell us about your background, your education, where you grew up, the
Right.
countries you've visited or lived in, everything until today, and your passions as well, your interests. I'm really open
Right.
to and excited to hear everything you can tell me.
Got it. All right. Let's go through it then. Born and raised in Munich, Germany, half Russian, half German. Hence the
Mhm.
name Sasha. It's like actually baptized as Alexander, but Sasha is the Russian short form for that, which has always caused a bit of confusion, but here we are. Grew up in a very like wholesome suburb of Munich, just classic life there, I would say. And kind of from a fairly early age on, I mean, classic growing up with playing outdoors still, having like your football friends and everything like that. But then gradually in my teenage years, bit of gaming here and there, which somewhat competitive at some point, but dropped that along the way because I shifted more towards being interested in music, picked up playing bass. And since the age of 15, was playing like in different bands and like recording records. And to this day, like I'm sure that's something we'll touch up on later in some way, shape, or form again. That's something that's kind of been on with me for the journey all the time. And then, yeah, after graduating high school, kind of as I think a lot of people struggling to think of what to do and probably want to study, but what, and was kind of torn between physics and philosophy in the beginning. Because love the kind of numbers game and kind of understanding the world, but also understanding the mind and kind of asking questions. So both of those were always interesting to me, but at the same time kind of felt like both of them seem a bit disconnected from society and people in a way. So
Mhm.
that's why I was like, maybe psychology is the right thing for me. Um, and what I did was probably one of the best things by accident I've ever done is like a friend of mine knew he wanted to study engineering, and we just jumped in a car and just drove through Germany and just sat in lectures, just went to any city that had a university and we're like, okay, we can study that there. So let's just sit in a lecture and see what that feels like. So that was like actually really good. And I figured out that which cities I enjoyed or which courses were interesting to me. And eventually, yes, decided to study psychology. Did a bit of traveling after high school, so sort of a gap year. Worked a little bit here and there, tried some things out, trying to see a little bit of the world, and then moved to a little town called Würzburg, close to Frankfurt, and studied general psychology there for 3 years. At the end of that, did like a bit of a short half a year exchange to Kyoto, where I studied more like business, society, like sociology and philosophy. So tried to cover that a little bit as well. Um, Before doing a couple more internships and thinking of whether I want to do a master's degree or not, and figured that, yeah, I kind of do, but figured also along the way that clinical psychology and like deep psychology might not be right down my alley. Because along the way,
Mhm.
I got very interested in like climate change and general sustainability, how that's connected to food consumption, especially. So I was like, okay, how can I combine these two worlds? Because I'm still passionate about psychology, but I kind of want to work more in the field of sustainability. And just by frankly Googling, figured that there is a course called environmental psychology, which they only offer basically at 3 universities, and one of them being Surrey in the outskirts of London.
Mhm.
So basically applied there and went to the UK for a year to do my master's there. Is where I met our common friend Clement. Um,
Mhm.
and really enjoyed that year in the UK. It's still a country, and especially the people that I very much cherish. Um, Studied there for a year, finished that, and jumped right basically on the day I handed in my thesis on a plane to fly to South Korea. where I worked for the United Nations for a little bit, for the Office of Sustainable Development, because I kind of wanted to cover that policy element of things and understand where this sustainability science, where it stands on a policy sphere and on a global sphere.
Mhm.
And then from there was like, okay, what's a good starting point in the work field? I was looking a lot at like NGOs and obviously kind of adjacent to sustainability. But then through a friend who was like, okay, actually, I don't know if you know, but like there's a couple consultancies of the major ones which are actually ramping up their sustainability and climate projects, and Boston Consulting Group, BCG, being one of them. I was like, okay, it's going to be interesting. I was working in a student consultancy back in the days, so I did an internship in a consultancy before, so I was like kind of knowing what I was getting into. I thought, okay, why not? Like the interview process sounds interesting and fun as well. So applied there, and bit by bit by luck, bit by accident, bit by like just good fit, I guess, made it in there. And then moved to Düsseldorf and basically worked from Düsseldorf for a good 3 years, also through the whole COVID period. And then exactly 2 years ago, I was like, okay, enough consulting for a minute. I want to I have some ideas that I want to dig deeper into and understand a bit better on the intersection of food and sustainability again. So I was looking for a PhD program, and found one here in Tokyo, actually also with the United Nations. The UN has its own university here, which is very much connected to the Tokyo universities. And applied there and made it into their PhD program. And basically had to start remote because Japan borders were still closed until May last year for me. And for almost 1.5 years now, I'm basically working as a PhD researcher here in Tokyo. So that's where you're catching me at the moment as well. A bit of a time difference if it looks very dark on my end compared to your sunny day, apparently. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty sunny here. How's the weather, by the way, in Tokyo for the
Lovely,
moment?
actually.
So, yeah.
Lovely. Still super. The summers are really hot, but now it's getting a little bit more to the autumn vibe, but it's still above 20 degrees every day, sunny. That's the cool thing about Tokyo. It's always, even the winters are very sunny. It doesn't get as foggy and gray as we're used to in Europe typically.
Yeah.
Cools down a bit in the evening, so finally the hoodies are coming out again, and I'm almost excited for that.
Yeah, in Belgium and Germany, especially in London or in England, haven't been there that much, but yeah,
Yeah,
most of the times I've been there, the weather is just so gray. It's. I mean,
yeah,
for me
yeah,
especially, I get kind of depressed. It's hard. I
yeah.
really need some sunlight. It's very
Same,
important.
same, absolutely. So very happy with the conditions here.
Yeah, I've been traveling to with my girlfriend for 2 good weeks, 2 solid weeks in Los Angeles at the end of
Mm.
August this year, so a couple of months ago, and I was blown away by obviously by many things, the size of the city, the people, the noise, the cars, the anything,
Yeah.
the innovation also, but for according to a lifestyle standpoint, the having the luxury to live close to the ocean and especially with that sunlight every day, it's crazy.
Right,
It's
makes
such a
such a difference.
it's crazy. I mean, to me,
Yeah,
yeah,
same. And I heard you're
yeah,
surfing as well, so that must be especially tempting for you there, right?
yeah. Having that salty weather, that
Mm.
sea breeze and the sunlight, it's amazing. I was it might not be the biggest thing we have. I mean, we have talked yet that we have in common, but how's your lifestyle going these days? Is it something that
Uh-huh.
you think a lot about, or and I'm talking on a
Uh-huh.
broad in a broad sense. I mean, obviously your diet, that's a topic I
Hmm.
want to dig a little bit deep in it, but yeah, also the sports, the
Hmm.
things you drink, you enjoy, your sleep habits. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about your lifestyle, especially with the difference of I mean, all the countries you visited and all the
Hmm.
work you do. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Very good question. I feel like I've been becoming more conscious of that a lot over the last years. Frankly, that whole move to going to Japan, shifting from consulting to the PhD, a lot of that was because I noticed the lifestyle I was living was not really suiting me, in a way of just a lot of time spent on work, a lot of time spent on a quality relationship, but also trying to juggle friends, family. Well, and I felt like I never had enough time for things that I'm personally passionate about, be it like music or be it like reading, be it traveling a bit more again. So that kind of made me aware of what I need more in terms of living a balanced life. And I guess that's something I've been exploring a lot over the last, yeah, especially 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess my life is fairly fragmented because the PhD is I have a lot of freedom in terms of how to allocate my time, because like it's my
Mm-hmm.
personal research, and surely there's interviews. Sometimes I have to give classes at university or something, but it's snapshots, like 1-2 days a week where I'm like really have to be physically somewhere. But all of the stuff I can kind of manage freely, which I'm enjoying a lot. It does come with sometimes a challenge of discipline and kind of figuring out priorities all the time, because no one else is putting the priorities for you in a way. Uh, compare that to like work environment where there's typically someone managing you, right, and kind of somewhat putting priorities on you.
Mm-hmm.
But I along the way, then I kind of made me more aware of what kind of, as the topics you mentioned, like how my diet is affecting mood and productivity, etc. How many units of sport I feel like comfortable with, and it almost feels like by becoming aware, you become a little bit more fragile as well, because you kind of notice all the subtle differences. Like, man, why am I in a bad mood today? And it's like, yeah, probably because I didn't work out for 2 days. It's like it almost feels like little things shift you off your balance, or at least for me, that's the case, a bit
Mm-hmm.
quicker than they used to. Probably a
Yeah.
normal process of aging. Doesn't mean that they're still like going out on the weekends, and obviously you notice like when sleep patterns get kicked off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to stick to um, somewhat of a routine during the week, as in like waking up roughly at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of what was a real game changer for me was establishing a good morning routine. Just like a bit of yoga, meditation every morning, and then just not looking at your phone for the first half an hour of a day, and the last 30 minutes of the day or so. All the blue light stuff aside, it feels like so many thoughts pop up and you're actually digesting stuff, and you're not just like from screens into bed into screens again, which I feel like is something that really affects mental health for me and focus in general. And yeah, we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about these things like dopamine balance and stuff, but which I'm
Yeah.
sure you know your fair share about as well. But that's something I'm becoming more and more aware of, and how much that's actually affecting life and daily
Yeah.
well-being.
And yeah, sure. And there's just too much to talk about the lifestyle in general. But talking about discipline and obviously the position you're right now,
Mm,
professionally, but also abroad, and I know the PhD. I mean, doing a thesis, it's you spend a lot of time on your own, and I mean,
mm,
depending to the teacher that's mentoring you, but and I know that there's different styles about that, but yeah, I mean, is discipline something that that comes naturally for you, or do you struggle with that? I mean, you've worked for major
mhm,
companies. You mentioned BCG, United Nations, so
mhm.
I'm pretty sure that you have some sort of a discipline. But I mean, for me,
Right.
it's very hard, and I'm really questioning myself and obviously other people just
Mm,
to find that right balance. Because I feel that when there's too much, it kind of blocks me and it kind of kills my creativity. When there's
yeah.
obviously too little, it's a total chaos and a total mess,
Yeah.
and could be really hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, what's your point about that? I mean, how's your
Yeah.
discipline?
I think you nailed that point of finding that balance, and I'm definitely, it's a daily challenge to figure that out. As discipline, it's such a tricky thing, right? Because a lot of things that we consider being disciplined is just like habit, right? And routine that you've established. And then people look at lifestyles of other people and they're like, wow, this person must be so disciplined. But it's just like a habitual routine that they've established for themselves. And it actually doesn't take much effort. Like it's just become this habit, right? So as I said, with things like a morning routine that took me a while to establish, but now it doesn't feel like an effort, quite the opposite. It's kind of natural and might look disciplined, but it's actually a natural thing I just do.
Yeah.
Disciplined as in, I think generally my upbringing and kind of the environments I've been in did foster a bit of a attention to what you want to focus on and kind of prioritizing. And perhaps on the somewhat more negatively connotated guilt side of things, where you're like, okay, I've been slacking for 2-3 days. I kind of wanted to do this, and kind of like self-reflecting and being like, okay, but you set yourself different goals. And again, I think a topic of delicate balance where you want to be judging yourself and kind of reflecting, but you also don't want to judge yourself in a way of like being unkind to yourself. And as you said, like maybe you had 2 days where you've just been really enjoying quality time with friends, family, you've been doing something creative. You don't want to be judging yourself for not being as productive, quote unquote, on like the more boring topics. If you're actually enjoying and living a fulfilling life along the way, right? So what's your take on it? Like what do you put discipline in this field of like habit, routine, responsibilities, duties? Where's that located for you?
Yeah, I don't know actually. I mean, it's very hard for me because it doesn't come naturally. I'm pretty lazy, let's say creative, in some way. So yeah, I pretty struggle with that, and I need a really solid routine or base. Yeah, almost yeah, a little bit weird sometimes, or very fixed. Just to feel a little bit more comfortable and to make me comfortable doing the actions. I mean, I think that's the key point for me. I'm mostly a thinker, which means, I mean, I don't say to brag or anything like that. I'm in my head. I live in my head. I think a lot, and the hard thing for me is taking actions or translating my thinking or my thinking modes or my thoughts into actions, and that's very hard. And at least to what I've understood and what I've experienced, you need some actions. Everybody needs some actions, and especially the people like me that lives in their head. You need to translate that in the concrete, in a daily work, even translating this into money, into a job, into a business, into challenges, or something really concrete, and you can almost grasp into actions.
Yeah.
And I think that's the almost the mental health balance I really need to be aware of and to work on in my life. And that's hard. But in another way, which I find really difficult, is that I'm also quite open-minded. I mean, I try to, but I think I can be really narrow-minded, but also quite open-minded too. And I listen to people, to podcasts, to videos quite a lot. I read quite a lot of books. And I think about discipline, and especially also taking actions, be really structured, waking up at 4 a.m., some stuff like that. If I can give you an image, a little bit of a cliche, you can easily fall into the trap. I mean, to copy the people that you're listening to or reading to.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what I was talking about, the balance. I really think discipline can be understood according to everybody's profiles. And I think we have different profiles, different way of working, even though everybody needs to take action, everybody needs to do smart things according to what they need, their goals, etc. So yeah, it's hard. It's some sort of a non-answer, but yeah, I'm still struggling. In fact, yeah.
Yeah, normal. I think, aren't we all? I feel like the two things, curious to hear your thoughts on that as well. Like what helps me a lot is finding just people to share experiences with. So kind of an example for my PhD, I'm kind of doing my research, as you said, by myself. So what helped me a lot is just like to have 1-2 meetings a week, even with other researchers that I proactively reach out to. Hey, do you just want to have coffee and talk? Because it kind of gives me something, okay, I want to be somewhat prepared for that meeting. And then just talking about it is inspiring and reinvigorating. Just speaking things out loud rather than typing or being in your head, just at least for me, helps me so much to be like motivated to do something again. Again, to kind of bridge the gap between discipline and motivation, somewhere in between there. And then the probably dreadful topic of deadlines, right? Like, how many do you want to put for yourself? How strict do you want to be on them? And also something that I'm still trying to figure out, because I think if you put too many, you just end up everything is just a to-do and everything's just a deadline. And I've been in that place and I really didn't like it. I noticed that like my whole life was a to-do list. And it felt like, I still need to do the following things, like go to the gym. I still need to read a book. I still need to like, and these are all things that I want to do, right? And they ended up in the same bucket as like doing your taxes. And that's when I noticed like I'm not enjoying the things anymore because they're all just in the to-do list. And what do you do them for at the end of the day? So what helped me is kind of, as cheesy as that may sound, just like write a to-want list and just like write down what you want to do. And kind of give these topics the passion that you actually have for them back to a certain extent. And I just want to be able to like, I don't know, if you're working to like a physical goal, if you want to do like a muscle up by at some point, I want to be able to do that by the end of the month, rather than saying, okay, I need to work out because my deadline for doing a muscle up is on the 28th of February. And then, it has a different feeling to it and kind of taps into affirmations, I guess, to a certain extent. But I think how we frame things and the language we use, even internally, even in our daily like to-do lists, does make a difference.
Yeah. By the way, do you meditate or do you do some priming or mindset preparation every day, or do affirmations or mantras?
I did a little bit of affirmations and mantras. These days, I just do Zen silent meditation, 15 to 20 minutes in the morning. And that's the stage I'm in at the moment. Might change again in a half a year or so, but currently that seems to give me the best overall feeling and mindset for the day.
Yeah, I've been trying that too for, let's say, about a year. I've been working with a life and a business coach, and he's helped me. I mean, he's proposed me some mindset work and some kind of meditation. He calls it priming, but it's it's interesting. It's interesting because obviously there's a huge link with the psychology and with the name of the writer. He's French. He's Émile Coué, the Coué's effect. It's close to hypnosis and to shaping your own reality according to your thoughts and your affirmations, and not depending to the outside world or to the external world, and having some sort of a control. And obviously you just fall back to what I said in a couple of minutes ago. You listen to someone on YouTube or someone famous, and you have the impression, if you're a little bit too open-minded or kind of weak in that sense, you can have the feeling that wow, the guy just shapes his whole world according to his will and his power or his mindset. And yeah, that's been tricky. I think you have to, I mean, we're all human, and it's it's a lot of marketing as well. So I'm a bit doubtful about these stuffs. Yeah, it's hard. It can even mess you up a bit. That's what I'm telling you. Yeah.
The whole self-help scene, you kind of mean. Yeah, I agree. Very much agree.
Yeah, it's a, yeah. I just bought it because I see it everywhere on YouTube and on Amazon and stuff. But I just bought yesterday the Kindle version of Arnold Schwarzenegger's new book,
Yeah.
And his mantra. I mean, he's been really more and more famous about the self-help and that kind of things recently. And his whole mantra, be useful, really
Yeah.
resonates to me, but
Yeah.
doesn't resonate to me because I'm really good at it. Instead, it's pretty much the contrary. It's I find it fascinating to be useful, and I think it's the right friction you need in your life to be in some sort of a healthy healthy position or healthy place. But I'm just curious. I haven't read the book. Have you read it or have you heard of it?
I haven't yet. I heard a lot of it. It's one of the few. I don't watch series that much, but I was
Yeah,
interested because he also brought out a
yeah.
Netflix series, just 2
I
episodes.
saw it.
I watched.
Yeah,
Yeah, you saw that. Okay, so
yeah,
you got to tell me if the book is kind of along those lines or if there's more to unpack in the book.
yeah.
Um, Fascinating character, like always. I love like there's so much about him to like be fascinated about, I'd say.
Man, I mean, he just grew up in the smallest village in Austria, and he did so many different things on such a high level. It's crazy. I mean, the
Yeah,
powerlifting, then the politics, and in between the cinema and
acting. Yeah,
the acting. It's really crazy. I mean, if you
insane.
yeah, it's insane. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's way smarter than we think he's, or we might think.
right. Might well be. Or
Yeah.
maybe he has that like discipline. He just seems to stick to things, right?
Exactly, I mean that's a cliche, and I don't want
Mm.
to, and obviously I'm not. I mean, I'm aware it's very very stupid to think like this, and it's way more complicated. But but is it right, or is it true that is it something cultural in Germany and Austria,
Hmm.
for example, or Switzerland maybe also? Because from the, let's say the Belgian, especially the Wallonians, which is the French speakers, Belgian people, and from the French perspective as well, and I'm sure from most of the, let's say the Italians, the Spanish, or the
Yeah,
speaking countries.
Mediterranean. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we all have some sort of the same cliche about you guys, about
Mhm.
the people in Germany, the Germans, that they really, I mean, their strength is the discipline, is the taking actions mode, it's the, yeah.
Mhm.
Is it true, or is it a total cliche, which is not right, or?
No, I think there's definitely something to it. Um, I think guilt for, you could argue, historic reasons, but it probably goes deeper. I don't want to go too psychoanalysis on it, but I think
Yeah,
guilt is a theme in German culture to a certain extent. And it's kind of this like, you have to do it because you have to do it. It's like you almost don't question it.
yeah,
And there is definitely societal judgment if you don't do your 9 to 5, if you don't carry your weight in a way. And I think that gets people to just do stuff.
yeah,
I personally think it often comes at the price of passion and enjoyment and living in the moment, because it seems so like just forced. And there's a lot of like responsibility, but not in like this more karmic dharma duty way of like, oh, wow, I feel like useful doing this, but it's more like, yeah, I just have to, in a more of a pressure, yeah, to-do list kind of way. Um,
yeah.
which
Which
still
culture?
creates results in rates, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah. Which culture are you the closest to? I mean, because you've been
Mm,
living in England,
right,
Korea, Japan, Germany.
right. Mentality wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Very good question. Maybe we can unpack that over the next next hour or so. I struggle. I feel like there's bits and pieces everywhere.
Yeah.
There's something now living here in Japan where I feel like you can tell that there's similarities and appreciation between German culture and Japanese culture. There's like this craftsmanship and this trying to perfectionate and make really something work. Again, I think Japanese are more passionate about it. They have this word ikigai, which is kind of like their purpose and their usefulness to society. And I think they attribute that to Germans a lot. They think like we also think like that about building our cars and everything. I don't want to generalize. I think that's always a bit tricky, but I feel like Japanese people are a bit more passionate in their craft than Germans tend to be. But there is those similarities, and then I can definitely relate to that. And it's just like there's also a very nice attitude here of like leaving any place you visit in a better situation than you found it in, and it's like kind of constant societal improvement.
Yeah,
Which
that's
I think
nice.
is a very, very nice, and it's a cheat code for society, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
because like from simple things like the restrooms here, everything's just so perfectly clean and no one litters because like you don't want to leave a place behind in a worse state than you found it. And I think that
that's
mindset,
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it, and I hear that from a lot of Japanese people as well. It also comes with a lot of pressure, and it's not only like this intrinsic thing that everyone's so passionate about. There's definitely societal pressures as well, which I, as a foreigner, obviously still don't experience in that way that people that grow up here do. So it would be foolish of me to just say like, yeah, I'm so Japanese, I feel so related here. But there's something that I can't quite put my finger on, but from that component that resonates with me. Growing up in Munich, we spent like kind of all summers and all the holidays in Italy. My parents were big Italy fans, so I do appreciate that Dolce Vita and living a bit more in the moment a lot as well. My mom being Russian, I also have elements of that culture, which can be kind of dark and a lot of tough love, but also kind of meaningful and purposeful. So I think like this, there is components of that as well.
It's
So
a good
yeah,
mix.
don't think I can give you like a distinct good answer for what I resonate most with.
Is it something? I mean, sorry to interrupt you. In Japan or even in Korea, or um, is is self-help something big there, or that doesn't exist at all?
Not really. I think it comes in as a trend a little bit. You see it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel like so many things that are in the self-help sphere, like meditating, like yoga, like the kind of purpose topics, are so much deeper embedded in culture here already. So it's
yeah,
not as new to them.
yeah.
And probably that's why it doesn't like kicks off that much here, is my impression. And again, even like most people here describe themselves as atheistic, but like because Buddhism and Shintoism, they're not kind of religious as we experience them, I guess, in
Yeah.
like the Christianity and Judaism, etc. It's more of a you tell stories. It's kind of an approach to life. Obviously, the other world religions also have that, but it seems less about faith and more about the kind of
Lifestyle.
self-help stuff,
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
live
yeah,
a good
yeah,
life. Exactly, right.
yeah, yeah.
And the kind of challenges that Buddha went through and trying to learn from that. Yeah. I mean, you can have the same approach to Jesus for sure, but I think the way
Yeah.
we've institutionalized Christianity is definitely different than how Buddhism has been used here.
Yeah, it also feels. I mean, never been to Japan and not much to Asia either. But it feels like it feels like we struggle in the Western world, especially in, I would say, for Belgian and French, but I think for most of the European people, it could be similar. It feel it feels like we struggle with to find the right balance, especially in those days, between individualism and socialism. I mean, in a good way, or society. And obviously, talking about self-help, it's here. It's a lot of an egoistic or a personal thing. It's personal. It's individual. And according to what you just said, and to some little pieces I've read here and there about Japan and other countries in Asia, it feels like they see it in a different way. and it's like you said, it's embedded in the collective culture, so it doesn't have the same impact. Yeah. What's your point of that?
I think very good that you brought that up. I think that's my biggest gripe with, like, especially how meditation, for example, is being used in the self-help sphere. Because it's like, oh, you can focus 15% more and you can be more productive here and there, but that's absolutely the opposite of what the roots of that are and what the yogis were thinking of it when developing these techniques. It's actually overcoming the ego and actually understanding more of a collective spirit in a way. And there's no goal to it. It's that's not the point of it. It's not the improvement for like a certain task or anything individualistic, as you said. And I totally agree, like trying to find this balance. And like collectivism here in Japan also has its burdens. You can tell that like the pressure and the judgment from society is big here, probably bigger than in more individualistic countries like for us in the Western Europe and in the US for that matter.
Yeah.
So I think they're also struggling with finding a balance in that way, because like world is getting more global, right? They just come from a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, that's maybe more personal than European, but I find that we can some sort of being kind of being trapped in our own too analytical point of views or way of thinking and seeing the world. What I mean by that is that almost like how I framed the question I just asked to you is it's like I framed it like there was just two options, two opposites, ego and the collective or the society. And obviously when you frame the question like that, even in the language you use or in your mind or in the collective unconscious of the society, in the culture, it's hard to imagine or to build a third option which could bend or mix or see together the ego or the individual and the collective. And that's really, I could say, I mean, it's a little bit more abstract and philosophical, I know, and I'm not gonna talk a lot about that, but yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, what's your point of that? Yeah.
It's super close to what you're describing to Zen Buddhism, where they kind of don't even have definitions for meditation, etc., because by defining it, you're limiting it. And you kind of, and that's what you don't want to do with these kind of practices. So,
exactly. Yeah, it's the same. It's a little bit the same. We can use the same argument for what we've talked 20 minutes ago about action. For example, when you try to do an action from your thoughts or from your goals or from your planning or your calendar, an action is an action. It's concrete. You're doing stuff. And for people, for example, for people like for someone like me, who's so much into the thinking, even when he's in the action, he tries to shape it or to frame it or to talk about it, which is a way of imprisoning it, of blocking it. What I mean by that, it's a little bit unclear, but an action is not there to be talked about. We just have to do it.
It just is. It just is.
Exactly. And I see the same. I can see the parallel or the similarity with what you just said about Zen Buddhism or different, like a meta perspective on reality, which would mix the ego and the collective or the
Totally.
It's a daily practice. It's action.
Right.
It's not grasped by language or rational or analytical reasons. Yeah.
It's definitely the limits of our language there. With your mindset, how is like the meditation going for you? Because you said you have a coach that like gave you like some ideas.
Yeah.
Have you tried meditation? Because that must be tricky when you're like a lot in your head and trying to define everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think I have another skill, but that could be also my weakness, is the emotions or the emotional side, which is really, really strong to me, in me, even more than the analytical side. But so I think the trigger is to find that emotion response when I'm meditating, or even when I'm doing stuff, or when I'm setting up my goals, or when I'm talking to someone, or it's just I need to feel it and to be really excited or enthusiastic about it. And that's the trigger point. But to answer your question, it's it's hard, because when you're so much in your head, and when your comfort zone is your rationality, your language, your analytical thinking, you can easily miss or kind of forget the emotional response you need to, and you have to be aware and connected to. So yeah, that's the key point, I think, for most of us, but especially for me. So I've been doing some affirmations written. I'm telling you, I'm reading them out loud, and I try to visualize them. But as I said, it's tricky, because I have to have, or to build my own way of priming or meditating, and I don't want to fall in the trap to copy the gurus or my coach or anyone like that. So, but at the same time, you need a structure. You need to do it pretty regularly to make it work. So it's hard. As I said, for your first question, it's I don't know, actually. I'm just trying different things and see how it works according to my mood and my emotions.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best advices I got when I started. You can't do it wrong, just do it, and you'll figure out your way, right? And that, at least for me, works fairly well so far.
Exactly. I would like, it is linked, but not that much, but everything is linked, but though, but I would like you to tell me a little bit more about the structure and the planning, and also your way of working, about your PhD, especially also the academics and how it works in Tokyo, in the university. Because that was also, just to make the link with the self-help discussion, lifestyle, discipline, actions, and stuff. It's also something I really struggled when I was writing my master's degree thesis. When you're alone in front of your paper and in your head, it's so hard to make it work on a daily basis, and just to improve slowly but surely. How does it work for you?
Yeah, good question. So my supervisor is very hands-off. I really appreciate it. He gives me feedback when I'm asking him to, but like I'm very much on my own in that regard. So what I said earlier, just finding other people to bounce ideas with. My research, like I used surveys. Now I'm currently doing interviews with politicians in Germany and Europe. So just talking to people and having like these little points that keep always like motivating me a little bit further, are helping a lot for sure. Then like once you get like I now published my first paper, the second one is in under review at the moment, and it kind of gets into that. Okay, there's this feedback from the environment coming back. I just came back from Europe, and I presented at a conference there, and just like seeing people actively engage with what you're creating is like a big help. I don't think I would generally recommend a PhD for someone like my younger self. It was really the fact that I knew what I wanted to do, and that it's a topic that I know I'm passionate about. And I could kind of see the line that it's only going to be 2.5-ish years. So I kind of knew how to break it down into 3 papers, and it felt like there's enough milestones to keep me in it. It's the classic breaking down your goals into smaller sub goals. Obviously, that's always part of it, which some days works better, some days works less well, right? But that has to be part of it. It was definitely a big shift for me, because coming from consulting, where there's like a deadline every 30 minutes, to like, here's just 3 years to do whatever, I don't know. So you kind of should do something every day to make progress, right? But you kind of, not a single day you have to do something, right? Like sure there's somewhat deadlines, but not really. So it's definitely from that hamster wheel of like there's always something to work towards to like you really need to fully structure was quite a shift, which took me a while, but it's definitely getting better. And with like again with creating these like morning journaling helped me a lot to just have like a couple targets for the day. In the evening, looking back, okay, I did 80% of that. Fair enough. I understand why I didn't do the 20%, or okay, I really could have done those 20%. It was easy to finish actually. Am I calibrating myself well? Am I like you get a sense for yourself, right? How's your own time management? Are you constantly underestimating how long things take?
Yeah,
Um, and
exactly.
are you pressuring yourself too much? And so in that regard, in terms of like in like practical self-help, I think a PhD is actually a very good exercise if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want to see
it's a
it as that.
self-help journey actually. Yeah.
It is, right? And you kind of need to find those tools along the way. So in that way, I can recommend it. In other ways, academia and stuff definitely comes with its challenges. And it's not
Yeah.
something I would want to do until the rest of my life. But again, the topic and the environment here is stimulating for me, which is why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I see exactly what you mean. There's someone, you know, Andrew Huberman, the famous
Of
podcaster
course, the
and
Huberman Lab.
Stanford.
Yes.
Yeah, he's crazy. I mean, he's really good.
Yeah.
And I think I watched. I'm pretty sure it's from him, but I watched so many things, so I'm not
Hmm.
100% sure. But I think it's from him. He says in a really short clip from his taken from his long format podcast that the first benefits of doing a PhD, 2, 3, or 4 years PhD study, is learning to deal with delayed gratification.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking myself, yeah, that's a really good answer actually. It's a little bit like going into the army just after
Mm.
your high school and before uni or before having a job, and like really shaping your mind into a structure
Yeah.
way of living with I mean some healthy discipline and other stuff. But it's counterintuitive in the sense that most of the time when you think about a PhD, you think about the content and the subject or what they're
Correct.
writing about. And he was talking more about the method
Mm. The
you
method, the
learn through
mindset. Yeah.
the yeah, exactly. Yeah, is it something that you have I mean you struggle with or not that much, because you talk about the journaling in the morning,
Uh-huh.
reviewing in the night,
Yeah.
that kind of discipline. But for example, for me, if I maybe I might frame the question in that sense. I could be really enthusiastic and excited to do that, the journaling,
Yeah.
setting myself some goals and
Yeah.
reviewing at night. But after a couple of weeks, I just fall into another
Yeah.
practical
Definitely.
or tool or
Mhm.
stuff. How do you work in the long term?
50-50. Some things seem to stick, others fall off. And I'm hoping I'm at a point at my life that if things fall off, there's a reason for it, why they don't stick. I'm sure I lose certain good habits along the way for not doing them right in a way, but I think it seems to be working out okay-ish so far. Yeah, you're definitely right about the delayed gratification. You know, like the good old psychology marshmallow test that they do with kids, where they're
Yeah,
like, that's the kind
yeah,
of beginning of delayed gratification. And it's a surprisingly good predictor of life success in terms of career, because like if as a kid you're already able to kind of delay that stuff, it
don't tell me this
we feel
because
this,
I would have failed 100%, like the biggest one.
right? Again, it's obviously it doesn't apply to the individual. We're always talking averages, but we seem to live in a society where delayed gratification is a skill that has its benefits for sure. So many goals are a bit more long term. I think the big risk about it, and maybe tying that back into also this cultural stuff we talked about with different nationalities earlier, it also lends itself to constantly be living in the future and kind of not appreciating the moment enough. So I think there is a price to pay sometimes when you like overdo it with delayed gratification, discipline, etc. Because you're always
Yeah,
just like, yeah, I can't allow myself. I'm on a diet. I need to do this. And again, it's all kind of to-dos, all like kind of forcing yourself, and that you kind of miss life along the way, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was something I was talking with my coach, my life and business coach. Is happiness more towards the me chasing my future self or looking to my future, achieving my goals, or is happiness or self-satisfaction more into living the moment here and now with
Yeah.
some good friends and enjoying the moment?
Right.
I think it's a mix, but it's not even an answer. But yeah, what do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think that's exactly that, and why journaling helps me, because like I set myself like monthly goals, yearly goals, then you review and kind of break it down. But then at the end of the day, there's like one thing in my morning journal, something that I look forward to, and that's just like meeting a new friend that I made last week for a beer in the evening, right? But it could come from like a monthly or a yearly goal of like, hey, I want to like reach out to more people and like do certain activities just on a weekday evening, right? So you plan that, but then you're actually in the moment and just having a drink with someone, right? And you don't kind of think about the long-term thing, but then after a month you reflect and it's like, hey, I actually did all of that stuff that I wanted to do. So you are working to your future self, but more in these like reflective moments rather than in the actual moment. And I think getting that balance in, kind of like breaking down these little goals for yourself, but then being in the moment and enjoying them while you do them.
Yeah.
That's probably where the magic comes in.
It's a little bit of a more of a personal question, and if you're not feeling comfortable, just feel free to tell
Fire
me.
away.
But is it something that you've done in the past, or that you're still doing? You still do seeing a practitioner, a therapist, or some sort of a coach, or anyway, or you haven't really needed to?
I unfortunately never have. I feel like I have many good friends that I kind of use for like bouncing ideas, or like use sounds like so utilitaristic. Like we just enjoy like having those reflective conversations together, and then certain resources on the internet, etc. But a part of me definitely wants to try that in a certain extent. It's just like didn't feel like the right moment was there for it yet. How
And
was your
also,
experience with your coach so far?
it's been great. It's been great, but it's been huge because I've most of my life I've been working with let's say psychologists, even though they came from different backgrounds and approaches to psychology, but it was more, to say it like this, looking into my past to improve my present and future life, which is totally fine, and I find it useful and very, very interesting. A little bit like gardening, if you want an image. And with the coach, especially the business side of it, which is honestly my biggest weakness, or at least the thing from now that I haven't been invested that much, and that I need to take more time to invest in it. It's way more practical, guided towards actions and about setting on my goals. So it's way more, let's say, pragmatic, Anglo-Saxons, practical, actions-based, and me trying from now, not looking to the past, but just trying to improve the future with the tools I can use here and there. So it's been great, but just a few days ago, actually, I had this thought that it's good, but as I said a little bit earlier, you don't want to fall into the trap that one approach of coaching or one way of using or thinking about psychology is all what you need, or is the only best, or the only option, or the only lens you want to see your whole world, and especially your internal world. And that's kind of difficult for me, just to have that step back and to use them as tools along the way. Now I'm working with a coach. I previously worked with a few therapists and hypnosis, which was really interesting as well. But I think it's healthier if I view them as tools, and I might just need to try another tool and use them and just to become a better version of myself with these tools or even without them.
Right.
But just enjoying the journey, you know, and trying things. But it's
Nice way of
hard.
putting it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's hard. I've been enjoying hypnosis though. That's a good mix between the psychology, let's say me looking into my past and some difficult moments during your childhood and stuff, and the practical tool or toolish action based. That's an interesting. Usually when people ask me where should I start, or which one should I see first, I would see starting with a good hypnosis therapist. That could be a nice answer. But again, there are some really bad ones, some really good ones, even some really good ones that where you can't find the comfort with them. So it depends to the profiles, to the therapist and to you.
Yeah, exactly. When you say you would recommend it as a starting point, do you think, because like some people are more open to it, let's put it, right? And have a certain mindset helps to get in certain states, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it does take a certain amount of, I don't know what the right word is, if it's trust, belief, or just openness, or maybe a mix of all of them, to probably get the best experience out of that, I reckon, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there is both. There's some people that really are really into it because of their open-mindedness or their curiosity, even though there's obviously tons of things in their past and their present life to work on. But there are also those people that are less curious. They don't really enjoy them. They don't really enjoy seeing or talking to a therapist or even to a friend like we do now, introspectively. But those people end up seeing a therapist, a psychologist, or whatever, or even a coach, because life just gets back at them, and they are in a bad situation and they have to, or they feel they have to. So there's also, there are also those kind of guys that I think they're pretty, numerous in the psychology, population.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we just make a break? Just
sure.
to have a pee and
Perfect timing, actually. Let's do
okay,
that.
great, cool. Yeah, I just let the recording.
See you in a couple of minutes.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's do that.
Just in a minute.
Actually, okay, cool. Let's go. Now, I was just thinking, reflecting a bit, and if you don't mind, I would like to go a little bit deeper into the content. Finally, eventually.
Let's do.
But let's start maybe with a broad question, because I'm totally not aware of all of these stuff, or at least I would like to know a bit your view about that. What's how do you view the link between climate change, as you told me, and food consumption? Just tell me what you think in a broad sense.
Right. Simple answer is that roughly 1/3, 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from the agriculture sector, so the way we produce and consume food. A large share of that, about like 2/3 again, come from livestock. So like depending on what foods we consume and produce, there will be more or less emissions cost for climate change. And then there's also obviously the whole sequestration process. So like the agricultural soil we use also, and the plants, the forests we cultivate, also have the potential to sequester carbon and actually bring it back into the earth. So it has like, not only is it like an emitting factor, it's also like a potential preserving factor. that there is a lot of change happening now, and new techniques of regenerative agriculture and different farming techniques where we're getting more carbon back into the soil. For example, by tillage farming, you get a lot of carbon out of the earth, and by doing monocultures and like intense farming, as we see in Europe and especially the US, a lot of the soil has been kind of lacking nutrients and carbon these days because of these intense cycles of just harvest. So that's the simple connection, so to speak, from emissions and just sequestration potential, which got me curious in the beginning when I first stumbled upon that, because I was kind of oblivious to it. I always thought like, okay, it's just driving your car, right? That's where emissions come from. So that kind of opened my mind to a lot of different topics, I guess, many years ago.
I see. And how did you? I mean, how did you know more about that? I mean, how did you start to be a bit aware? It was from a book, from someone,
Right.
from your research, or?
Mm. It was a documentary called Cowspiracy. It was like, I think it's on Netflix now. Leonardo DiCaprio did some executive producing on that now, which, yeah, just like blew my mind back in the days, because like there was so much stuff I've never even heard of and kind of almost felt
Yeah.
a mix of stupid and just betrayed by society, that these seems to be topics not addressed. We talk a lot of, it's been like more than, yeah, it's been almost 10 years ago. I feel like it's a lot more like prevalent these days, and people seem to be a bit more aware of it. But back in the days, at least for me, it was something completely new. And I just binge watched that documentary, and like the whole night I just spent like researching other sources and was like, okay, there's something to this for sure.
And what's your, I mean, still in a broad perspective, but what's your goal with it? I mean, what could Sascha Brumm do anything about that? Yeah.
Right. That connects to a lot of topics, I guess, and that have been following me over the last years, and eventually brought me to this PhD, because my PhD is on sustainable food consumption. And what I'm doing is I'm developing an value and evaluation system for food products. So I don't know, I think it's also a thing in Belgium. Have you seen this Nutri-Score on certain products where they
Yeah.
mark like how
Yeah.
healthy a product is? I really don't like it. I think the way it's being, the math behind behind it is not the best, and it only compares between like the same groups. But it's a similar idea that you like see how healthy or like health sustainable a product is, but not only looking at the health implications, but also at what does it do with society. So how does it affect like the farmers in the supply chain? How does it affect animals? What is it creating of like additional values to society? Also how it affects the planet as a whole, right? So our ecosystem, be it climate change, be it biodiversity, how sustainable is it on like a planetary scale?
Yeah.
But also being aware of more personal values, things like taste, things like nostalgia, emotions,
Yeah.
kind of religious values, cultural values we have with certain products, where we just want to eat these products. And I think there's a value and appreciation to that we also need to cultivate. And just trying to have this like holistic view on food. What do we actually value about it? And then kind of bridging the gap between, because I'm also kind of analytical in my mind, and I would love to just know that about certain products when I'm in a supermarket. But also bridging the gap towards behavior
Yeah.
value action gaps. And the psychologist in me is kind of just curious, okay, if we would become more aware of that, what kind of behaviors would actually change? And are we kind of living in line with our values? Or is there like a contrast and something subconscious that you could maybe uncover with this? Because if you start like rating certain products, it's like, yeah, this is important to me and this is great. And then you look at a product, okay, it scores super highly on all of those, and you still don't want to buy it. Like, are we missing something? Is there like a personal value missing? And almost like this understanding the mind and our consumption patterns whilst trying to make the world more sustainable is something that fascinates me about this topic. And I think food is just something so inherent to us. Like it's our literal life, right? It's something we all
It,
consume every day.
it's a basic need. Yeah.
It's a basic need, exactly. But I think that almost doesn't do it justice these days, because it's almost a necessity, I think, to some people. I think maybe that's also the German in me speaking. We don't have a great culinary culture in Germany. For us, it's really often like you just need to fill yourself up. But I think again, other cultures or other people like definitely have like more of a
Yeah.
deeper connection with food, I think, to a certain extent. And I feel like the way we produce and consume food these days is just so disconnected in a way, because just less than 2% in the West are like employed by the agricultural sector. Like a lot of kids growing up will never go to a farm, right? Will never like plant something themselves. So that creates like this, okay, where does the chicken wing come from? Like when you go to McDonald's, because it's very disconnected from the animal at this point, right? How would you even cultivate that connection?
Yeah, okay, I see. So I guess, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. You
Hmm.
tell me if I'm
Please
wrong or
do.
not. But if I well understand, then I might frame my understanding of what you just said like this, like the following one. Is the question, um, is it possible to live in in a world at a world scale?
Hmm.
I mean, with the exchanges with in between different countries and stuff. So let's say in today's world, in,
Hmm.
yeah, is it possible to live like this, um, but at the same time, um, giving that I not only that ID, but being close to the source of our food. If I take it
Hmm.
only on the food topic, but yeah, I'm not sure it's even really clear in my head. But I can see that the challenge that the world is evolving like a lot
Yeah.
from, let's say, 1 or 2 centuries,
Yeah.
and now we are really at a really large scale, and it's even growing even more with AI and those kind of stuff. And I mean exchanges in between individuals, but also in between countries on an
Yeah.
economic standpoint, but on a food consumption standpoint,
Yeah.
on every perspectives. And is it possible to live like this today in a global world, but at the same time being really connected to, like you said, in a simple way, but really powerful way, to
Hmm.
the source of the food we are consuming, and not
Right.
consuming powders that we don't know that where they come from and stuff. Is it the
Right.
right
Right.
question to frame,
I think it's
to
I
answer?
think it's a really good question. Um, Two answers, no and yes. No, because as you said yourself, like the system becomes ever more complex. We're all moving more towards cities. Cities keep growing.
Yeah.
The agricultural sector will not grow back. And I
Hmm.
don't see a world where we all go back to like settlers and farmers, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So really challenging to get that back. However, from like more direct actions that we see, like community gardening, so like having small scale farming within cities. Don't get me wrong, this is never going to cover the needs of all people in the society. We still definitely need the land. We can't feed people from like urban agriculture. That's, if anyone tells you that, that's not just not possible.
I see. I
Um,
see.
However, it can create this connect again, right? Like you're like, okay, I'm just harvested my own carrot here, and it's just like I know what that means now. I know how much effort goes into this. I know like how water affects it, and it's like you actually know where the product comes from. And
Hmm.
then you mentioned AI and like the technological advances we have now. I've been working together with a startup called Ours in Germany. What they do is they actually connect back to the farmer. So what they've done recently is in Norway, they created kind of a seafood products where you can, with a QR code, scan exactly on the map where it has been caught, the fish, and by whom, and like the kind of ecosystem it's been harvested in. So is there like a risk of overfishing, etc. So
Hmm.
while there is a lot of complexities now and a lot of trading, with these kind of technologies, we could actually create a lot of transparency in the supply chain and in the value chain as a whole. So I think there is a stronger yes, actually, as in I think we can now create this world with some technological advances, and also with like just creating more awareness and more regional consumption, etc. There's like 100 different approaches to this,
Hmm.
that we can actually connect back with food and become more mindful and aware again of what we eat. And honestly, the whole self-help era, to link back to that as well, also lends itself to it, because I think people are becoming more aware of what healthy nutrition actually looks like. and are questioning like the standards that we grew up with a lot more, and are actually doing their research for their own health benefits. Again, this is a bit of a, for sure, still a somewhat privileged Western topic, but you can definitely see the trend swapping over to across societies and across socioeconomic statuses.
Yeah, I see. But just to step back, because it's so complicated, and I haven't been invested in these topics so much.
Please stop me at any second.
No, not at all. But I mean, what's the right question to ask for this topic, or this question, or this challenge we live in now? What's the right question to ask to attack it, to tackle it in the right way, according to you, in the broader sense?
That's, I think, literally what I'm trying to do with my PhD. What do we value in food? What is it that we actually want out of it? Because I don't think we know that anymore. It's like, yeah, I just want to be full, but then you keep asking, yeah, but I kind of also want to be healthy. Okay, what does it mean to be healthy? Okay, you need certain nutrients. And then you kind of start digging from there, and uncovering all the things that it's connected with. And it's like, for example, when we look at the animal welfare topic, it's like, I know a lot of people that are just very passionate about animals, pets, etc. But then for them, the connect to animal agriculture is never really there. And I don't blame them. I've definitely been the same. For me, it was also incredibly disconnected. But if like animal welfare is something you value, and you like, I don't know, you go to a dog shelter and help out there, but then you miss every day in the supermarket what your purchasing decisions are doing, and that they're actually against your values, that's kind of unfortunate, right? So creating this transparency, this awareness, so that people can make value-based decisions again. We can make value-based policies. We have value-based companies. I feel like that's a word that's been thrown around a lot, but I don't think people really question it, what we actually value. It's more of a like, yeah, political catchphrase of like, to get certain voters and make people feel comfortable that like, yeah, this is a value-based company. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah, okay, I see a bit more, I mean, a bit clearer what you mean, but you framed your question in a really large or broad sense, but it was focused to food, to the food perspective. And the question I was asking myself when you were talking is that, is it even the right question to ask if we step back, if we take a step back even further away? What I mean by that is that, isn't it the right question, something like this, instead of what you just said, instead of what do we value in food or in our food consumption? Isn't it the right question, the following one? What do we value? And that, I mean,
exactly.
What do we value? Bottom line. I mean, what do we value in our life in the broader sense to make it work on every perspective? Isn't it the question, or am I too large or too?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and that's kind of the philosophical side of me that got inspired by this topic. I just think because food is such the essential life component and something so graspable, because we have it kind of every day. To me, it just feels like the best case to start doing that with. Because if you're just laying in your bed, what do I actually value? There's like this pops up. But then if you make it a bit more tangible with like, why do I like this apple pie? And then you're like, okay, I guess I value my grandma because she makes the best apple pie, right? It just reminds me of my time with my grandma. I appreciate the taste. I appreciate like the lifestyle that comes with it. I appreciate maybe summer because that's apple season where I was born. And I think these kind of concrete examples in food just connects to so many areas that it feels like a very good topic to start exactly this gigantic question that you're raising, like what do we actually care about? What do we actually value?
Yeah, and I was also asking myself when you were talking, is even, I mean, what do you mean by value? Do you see it as a synonym as a need? So
Right.
I would reframe it like this: what do we need in life?
Yeah.
Or to make it a little bit more precise on your topic, what do we need in the broader sense through our food consumption? Is it, I mean, how do you feel between those words, value, need, or maybe there's another one,
Oh
or
yeah.
because, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
don't want
spent a
to
lot
fall
of
in the trap into definitions, because I really
no.
think experimentally and the reality should frame
Absolutely.
the words we using to describe it. But yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's I think really important to actually ask that question. And I had to do that quite a bit over the last year. There's like two common definitions of value. One is just the monetary value, because that's kind of how we think about in the West of what something is valued as. It's kind of you connected with a currency and just like the monetary value of it. And then there's the way more broader of like Oxford Dictionary, Cambridge Dictionary, they say like something that's meaningful or something that is
Yeah.
good to someone. It's a very abstract definition. It doesn't really help you much. So that's why
Worth.
it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I kind of like your idea of just focusing more on the word need, and it goes a bit of in the Maslow kind of pyramid idea of needs, I think, to me when you mentioned that, and it tackles a lot of that. I come more from a kind of mindset perspective, maybe a little bit, because need to me is you just want to cover it. It feels like there's less growth and breaking the horizon with it. Value is like, what do you want to create? What's a valuable world for you? Rather than what's a world that just satisfies all your needs. I'm sure there's different takes on that. To
I
me,
see.
value feels a bit less limited than just covering needs.
Yeah, I see.
Because then we're quickly in the, okay, what are your caloric needs? What is like the needs for keeping the water flow going? And then you tick 3 boxes, and that's kind of all we need. But
Yeah.
then I'm not sure if grandma's apple pie is covered with all of those needs, because I think
Yeah.
there's something a bit deeper, that's something that we also want, that we desire, that goes a little bit further than maybe the word need associates with me. But tell me your impression.
No. I mean, I see the benefit of both words. I think
Yeah, agree.
if we choose to use the word value, we have to think in terms of need, at least for some
Yeah.
part, and same in the other side. So yeah.
I should give
I,
you probably one more argument. I mentioned that the monetary value, right?
yeah.
I also chose the word because I want my framework to be applicable to like economics and policy making. And one of the biggest points I'm trying to make is that the kind of price and money associated with food is very disconnected of how much we actually value it. There's certain approaches like true cost accounting, where people put like a carbon price on top of products and say like, hey, this product should be more expensive because it actually creates a certain harm that someone else is paying for indirectly with taxpayer money. So like the external costs of the food system are actually 3 times higher than the value generation. So like we are actually, it's a deficient, like the business case isn't really working for food. Someone's paying the indirect cost for the
Yeah.
food production. So that's also why I think it's important to talk about value. I don't know how deep we want to dive into that, but I think it's generally tricky to ever find like a dollar value that is 100% representative of like a value for society. It's
Yeah.
probably always too complex, and neither will a score, but it just gives you like an average and a perspective and kind of a benchmark to work with. Because as a policymaker, as a business, you need to like find some kind of common ground, right?
Yeah.
We try and live in democracies in most countries, and finding like something that society agrees on is important and kind of emphasizing that. And if we all agree that climate is important to us, then probably we should subsidize products which are positive for the climate, and we should put tax on products which have a negative impact on the climate, and kind of find some kind of quantitative approach in terms of, okay, how much subsidies and how much taxes do we want to put on these things?
Yeah, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally. Yeah. But it's tricky and it's a complex
Yeah,
question. Yeah. But
for sure.
I would like to ask you that. I mean, it's my personal thought, and I haven't thought about it a lot, so it's just a little bit raw, and it might be not
That's
really
the best thoughts.
thoughtful. Yeah, maybe, or intuitive at least. But
Yes, exactly.
if I understand, there are some to your question. What is what is the value of I mean, what do we value in our life, and especially what do we value in our food consumption? And immediately when you answer the question, you can see that there are different layers or different dimensions or different perspectives. And you can answer from a really basic need, that food consumption, like everybody needs to eat just to
calories.
Exactly, calories. But there are many different layers. For example, the animal point of view, the environmental, the aesthetics, also the cultural, etc., etc. And I can see that you're trying to grasp all those dimensions together.
Yeah.
But my question is, because it's such a complex, multi-layered question, automatically, what is, according to you, your first principle? What I mean by that is that if we could put all those needs or values into a pyramid, what would be the base? What would be the base of the pyramid? Meaning, if I might be a little bit more clear, what I'm thinking, ask you this question is, at the end of the conversation or the reflection, any ethical or moral or societal conversation or reflection about food and the world, what's the first principle of it? What's the first need we need to fulfill, to satisfy in the first place, if we answer the question? And to me, it seems intuitively that it is health. What I mean by that, if I can just clarify my question, is what do you think about every ethics, whatever they may be, should be in the first place satisfying the health perspective? And I mean the human health perspective, before the animals' perspectives, the environmental perspectives. And I'm not saying they are not important. I'm just saying we have to put them in order. And I'm asking myself, what's the order? What's the first principles? What's the first thing?
Right. I appreciate that principle thinking, and we need that needs pyramid in a way. I agree with you. I think once you zoom in just a little bit closer, it gets a lot trickier, because currently we live in a world where like 14 of the 15 causes of premature death are like linked to diet. So like if people in the West are dying, that's it for the US, the statistic. But if people in the US are dying before the age of 80, like in 14 out of 15 cases, there was some association with diet. So we're kind of not ticking that box of healthy diet in a way, right? Because like numerous reasons, and we can go into details of like the nutritional state that like fast food culture has kind of created, that like kind of cheap wheat, cheap sugar has created, etc. I think it gets tricky when, where do you draw the line of this is a healthy diet? Because it's so individual and there's so many interaction effects. I think we're scientifically at a pretty good understanding of like the nutritional needs we have in terms of like vitamins. That's why we have these daily kind of requirements in terms of supplements as well. Even though there it also gets tricky how much gets actually absorbed. If you take like 5 milligrams, actually 5 milligrams ending up in your body. So again, there's so many like little nuances. And then the question is like, okay, let's assume, very hypothetical philosophical question, but let's assume we can like grow this new tree, this holy extra avocado tree, which improves our health by arbitrary 2%, right? but it completely destroys the environment and only like 10% of the population could afford it. Is it then still the right priority? Should we then still plant this like ominous avocado tree, or is there like a certain, there will always be a trade-off at some point, right? And I agree with you, like having your nutritional needs covered in a subjectively well received manner, that you feel healthy about it, and that's scientifically supported, that all the nutritions are covered, and you can tell, you can look at the medical system and see, okay, actually cancer rates are going down, heart disease is going down, so we're doing something here with diet related diseases which is helping, while at the same time saying we're still also improving on those other elements, be it animal welfare or like the ecosystem, then yes. So I don't know if that helps with the question you asked, because I do appreciate that kind of philosophical, what's like your axiom, what do you want to prioritize? Yes, I think a health-wise sustainable diet for sure. And I think we're actually kind of far off of that. More people die of obesity than hunger these days. So we kind of screwed that up apparently. Again, not saying that hunger is not an issue. We produce more than enough food to feed the world. So we should really start not having people overeat, whereas other people are still starving, right? So we need to figure that out somehow.
Yeah. I think the question I'm asking myself is that isn't it the best answer or the best thing we can do for the animal, the environment, the climate, anything, to start first by thinking about our diet personally on a healthy standpoint, and find something that really works in the long term for many different human profiles. And what I'm inferring or seeing as a consequence in this question is that I don't want to mean that I don't care, or I don't want to care about some sort of external point of views, animals, forests, environment, climate, and anything. What I mean by that is deeper and linked. I'm thinking, or at least my intuition gives me that direction, and I'm wondering if the right perspective to think in the broader scale as possible for this environmental topic is to start by tackling our health, and automatically it will help in the best way possible the animal issue, the environmental issue, etc. Because if we take the question the opposite sense, in the opposite way, I'm asking myself, for example, why, and that could be a little bit tricky, and I don't want people misunderstand me, but if I'm asking myself, why do we want to help, let's say, the animals, the other animals or the species, and to make them feel and live in a nice, great, and natural environment. And I kind of intuitively sense that the end answer of this question, if we keep answering why, is for us, for ourselves, in a healthy, egoistic way. Do you understand what I mean? Or
I
is it too
100%
complex?
agree. No, I 100% agree. And I think that is not disconnected from this value topic, because like we care about climate change because of the impact it will have on us, right? We can't really be healthy individuals on an unhealthy planet, right? If like the ecosystem around us is dying, if the air is polluted, if the water is polluted, we're not going to be healthy either. So like we kind of can't take ourselves out of that system. And luckily these things seem to be aligned. If you look at, for example, I don't know if you heard of the blue zones, like the people where you have the most centenarians, these diets are actually in line with the so-called Eat Lancet diet, where like there's a proposal made by scientists who say like this is a nutritionally healthy diet, which is also positive for the climate, or at least has like a minimal impact on the climate. And depending if we produce them in a good way, then it's also going to be healthy for society in terms of farmers, etc. So luckily, it doesn't seem like there's a big contradiction on any of those topics. And it ultimately circles back. Yes, it comes back to us as healthy individuals, and hopefully will feed a healthy planet as well. And I don't think you can really disconnect, or there's like a clear beginning or an end to it. But I like your healthy, egocentric perspective at the end of the day, because you're right. Yeah, you want to live like a good, healthy life. And that ultimately, in my opinion, means creating a healthy environment around you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's so interesting. There's just so much. And about yourself personally,
Yeah.
are you on a special diet, or
Mm.
how's your food consumption habits look like?
Yeah. I went on a plant-based vegan diet like 10 years ago, kind of when I stumbled upon the whole topic. And kind of did that cold turkey overnight and haven't looked back ever since. Feeling very, very good with the diet. Discovering my diet before was actually pretty shitty. I didn't try a lot of different foods. It was kind of very student kind of eating habits, just like simple pasta, cheap meat from the supermarket, right?
Yeah.
And then and this is actually something one of my favorite drummers as a musician says, like, it's sometimes easier to be more creative when you have set parameters. So like if I tell you just like play me anything or paint me anything, it's kind of hard. But if I tell you like a little bit of paint me something that's like circular and kind of there's a house in the background or something, you can still be creative, but you have like limitations that actually make it more creative. And I had that moment with kind of going vegan because I went to the supermarket. It's like, okay, what can I eat now? And just kind of, okay, this is cool. I can try this. I can try this. And all of a sudden, within half a year, my diet became like so much more diverse. I discovered foods that I never even thought of trying. I was like, okay, I guess I can try that now. So I think that's a big concern for a lot of people before they go plant-based. It's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to eat anything anymore. Um, there's like thousands upon thousands of grains, vegetables, etc., and we're eating like less than 1% of it in like on a regular basis. So there's so much to discover and to explore, and uh, it's definitely not limiting to me
Yeah.
in my personal experience. And just by the numbers, there's just a lot to try. And also like super happy to see I'm doing regular blood tests and everything, and it couldn't be better in terms of values. I'm working out in the gym. I'm doing great with that, and it just
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, because just to make the link with the last question or the last topic we've tackled,
yeah.
it's amazing because it's been almost 2 years that I'm on a carnivore diet.
Wow.
Now it's changed a little bit. I'm on a meat and fruit diet with adding just a little bit of carbs, but almost no vegetables, just occasionally, but nothing at all, and
Right.
mostly meat, which includes fish, fish butter, milk,
Yeah.
cheese, hard cheese, soft cheese, and also obviously seafood and meat, different kind of meat,
Right.
and some sort of fruits. And what amazed me is that, just to make the link with what we just tackled a couple of minutes ago, if we take if we ask in the first place, what's the healthiest diet for human profile?
Yeah.
Some people would ask a vegan diet. Some people would ask,
Right.
or would answer, sorry,
Yeah.
a carnivore diet, and some other people, or
Yeah.
many other people, would answer some sort of a mix. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying this totally unconsciously, because I've been working on it. I'm not a professional, I'm not a doctor, but I've been listening and reading books about the carnivore diet and the needs of protein, of animal-based protein. So I'm kind of a little bit aware of this, according obviously
Right.
to my take on this. So it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy that some very, very, very different diets can make people, or different profiles, or even the
Yeah.
same profiles,
Yeah.
pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Obviously, we will have to compare, but that's not the goal only. So, and then if we can just make the following question linked to the first one is, okay, but how can we solve or tackle or ask the right question on a broader scale for the environmental question as you ask and tackle on your PhD thesis.
Right.
So I mean, it's so complicated. It's very hard.
It is really hard. And it's just fascinating. I agree with you that like nutrition is such a, I'm also not a nutritionist. I'm doing my homework while studying with it and exploring myself, right?
Yeah.
But I could definitely, from like sources I've read, probably create like a scientific reason why you should have died by now with your diet, but you clearly haven't. You look great, you look healthy, and it seems to be working for you, right? And
Yeah.
probably vice versa. Some of the carnivore literature would probably argue that I should have been dead at this point, but I'm doing great, right?
Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
it's a crazy world in terms of, because it's also science and you kind of think that it should always apply, but then real nutritionists obviously know that like different diets clearly work for different people.
Yeah.
When it comes to the environment, I mean, I think there's certain points you can make. We kind of know how much land we use, for example, to produce certain products, like
Yeah.
how much land beef takes up, how
Cows.
much land pigs take up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can just do simulations and be like, okay, if we all went pure beef carnivore diet, all 8 billion of us,
Yeah.
there just wouldn't be enough land for that. So I guess you can argue from a scenario. I'm not sure how helpful that is, because like I don't think that's ever gonna happen in a way. So you can have these, you kind of have to have in the sustainability sphere these kind of conversations, kind of what's feasible for the planet. And then there's other topics like China is becoming aware of that issue, and they're building skyscrapers for livestock now. So you have like 20 stories skyscrapers full of pigs, which brings other issues because there's a lot of zoonosis, like the pigs catch a lot of diseases. You pump a lot of antibiotics into them, which makes the viruses even more persistent. And then you kind of create these kind of health crises, which is again linking back to your topic, what should be the number one priority?
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
health in a way, but health comes from so many environmental impacts.
Yeah.
That even if pig meat was the healthiest thing, if we produce it like this, then it's clearly not.
That's how you, I mean, that's how you understand Nietzsche's point of view that in truth, or let's say in scientific truth, there is so much faith into it, or so much religious thinking, or wishful thinking. And actually, I think his quote, but I'm misquoting a little bit, but there's just one quote which is amazing and really drives me nuts kind of way. I mean, I really like it. Is truth is only a faithful thinking, or let's say a religious thinking that works at the moment, at that precise time for this particular human. And in a matter of days, weeks, hours, or years, it could be a total different. And that's, I mean, that's when we kind of almost have to dig into the, let's say, a knowledge theory, or questioning how the mind and how do we get some knowledge, and questioning how the science works. And obviously also the academics, the papers, and the literature.
Issue there for sure. Yeah.
It's amazing. We're not going to end the conversation with a clear and short answer.
No, unfortunately not. Love to have another podcast on that topic, because it's also a very fascinating world. But as much as I don't want to stay in academia and I see a lot of issues with it, it's still our best guess, and I think it still creates very, very important guidelines for us as a society.
You can really feel lost. No, tell me, excuse me, tell me, continue.
Maybe that connects to your point. Science is also very, in terms of like the hard to the more softer sciences, right? Like social sciences, even nutrition, there's so many interaction effects. Psychology is so much like unknown variables. Whereas like engineering is, you kind of have like a 99.9% chance of stuff to work out, right? Whereas like these rates in medicine, etc., are way lower. And we understand some of the mechanisms, but obviously not all of them. But gravity seems to be working. Even there, we're discovering new things, right? Where the gravity exactly is coming from, sure. But the spectrum of science in terms of its reliability and, let's call it the truth factor, whatever that is, there's more vulnerable and less vulnerable ones. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would frame it or say it differently. I would say in hard science, for example, for the gravity issue or question or truth, it, I would say that it evolves less quicker than some
Yeah.
psychological truths or whatever, or opinions, I would say. Yeah.
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 Also
It's
younger
it,
sciences in general, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, with all these, I mean, with all these issues and questions that stay opened, you can really feel lost. I mean, I feel completely lost, and that's
Yeah.
why I want to ask you. I mean, again, some sort of a first principle thinking or prioritizing thinking. What do you believe in the strongest, or what do you believe in? I mean, what's your base, or if you would feel completely lost with a total paradigm shift in whatever situation it could be, what is in the first instance the thing you would, I mean, you would put your trust in the most? For me personally, it's
Yeah.
I can shake pretty much everything, and that's obviously what I'm doing. I'm trying to do on a daily basis, even though I'm just touching some really small topics and there's just so much more. But because we don't know anything at the end of the road. But yeah, at the end of the discussion, I think if I just need to find my way in the middle of the jungle, to give you this image,
Yeah.
I would trust the experiment. And what I mean by that is what the reality gives me
Feedbacks
through
you.
my, feeds back me as close as possible through my senses. And I know
Yeah.
that my senses
Yeah.
are already filters, but I would put my trust and my faith, that's the right
Yeah.
word, I think, into experiments way
Right.
before a carnivore or a vegan theorist or whatever
Yeah.
could be the topic. What's your
Yeah.
take on that one?
I think you perfectly described the scientific method, right? You build a hypothesis and then you test it, you experiment, right? And I agree with you. This is probably also the belief, and this is probably also my core that I would go to. And to me, that describes the scientific method, and in a way, unfortunately, not the system of academia at the moment, but like the premise of research and having experimental research science is just like the way to go. So that's why I'm still part of that church and belief, the
Yeah,
closest, I guess. I
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah,
I share that.
exactly. And it's hard because, I mean, I'm thinking about your profession, your PhD at the moment and stuff. And when you tackle, and obviously you have to, but when you tackle, and it's really funny as well, and we need that in another way. But when you tackle so complex questions, you have to be abstract, and you have to
Yeah.
be in some sort of a thinking mode,
Yeah.
trying to see together different patterns or different perspectives, and you automatically fall into the easy trap of being too analytical, being not as close as
Mm,
you wish you would be to reality or to experiments. And that's,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's an unsolved problems, but it's hard. What do you think about that? I mean, don't you, I could maybe ask you the question in that way. Don't you fear or miss being too far from the source, not the source of the
Mm,
food, but the source of your thinking? I mean by that,
yeah.
the reality.
Yeah. Absolutely. The more you try and grasp a complex system, the more abstraction you need, as you say yourself, to describe it. And for sure. So whatever I'm researching at the moment is simplifying a lot of things. However, in my personal opinion, that's something scientists struggle a lot with, and that's why a lot of
Yeah,
science is very, very specific. So you just look at one nutrient affecting
yeah,
one person at one time, And then the problem of generalizability is like, okay, interesting for that one person at one moment here, but it doesn't really help society. So isn't, in Arnold's
Yeah,
words, is that really useful at that point? Or do we
exactly.
need to like take a bit of a risk and say, hey, it looks like there's a pattern,
Yeah.
arbitrary 80% chance that that's true. It could be completely wrong, but it's the best guess we have. So let's sail into that direction rather than the other direction. Because at some point, we as a society and individuals, we have to make best guess calls, right? We can
Yeah.
never be 100% certain, and you can definitely lose yourself in over analyzing and just going too deep. So what I'm trying to do is, again, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not an ecologist. Like I don't understand all of these subtopics perfectly, but I think science and society is, in my opinion, must try to find some kind of common language and common denominator where this stuff becomes useful again. And
Mhm.
you need to simplify and make things a bit more abstract for that to work in such a complex system, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. But I think my theory about that is, or my view or my understanding of the reality is that the world is complex, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the human world, or let's say the human population,
Mm-hmm.
or diversity. And my theory is that, and obviously I'm biased because I'm a psychologist or social scientist in a way. So my first principle would be the people or the individuals. But I would answer or give you my theory like there are different human profiles,
Mm-hmm.
and there are people that are much more involved naturally. And I think it is because their brain and even their genetic codes are wired like this.
Yeah.
I mean, into hyper specialization. And there are other
Mm-hmm.
people who are much more generalists, which doesn't mean that they can't be specialized in a domain, but they used to
Yeah.
be either really broad generalist or either multi specialist,
Yes.
which could be some sort of a synonym. And my theory is that the world needs both
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
because it is, and because we observe that there are in different areas or domain or matters in the world hyper specialized things. Let's take, for example, I don't know, the scientifics in social science today,
Yeah.
but there are also other domains or other niches of the world who are much more interested in generalizing and seeing the big picture, as you said, and as you do,
Yeah.
for example. And my view about that is throughout history and throughout space as well, geographics,
Mm-hmm.
the spread. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but the
Distribution
the
of those
yeah,
people.
the distribution of those people changes according through times and space, cultural shifts
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
modes or trends and stuff in the short term, but also in a broad term. So let's say in a century, but also in a decades or in a generations.
Yeah.
And for example, just to give you a clearer example, if you take the doctors, or we can take the scientifics, but let's say the doctors. 50 years ago, the doctors were way more philosophical, interested by music as well, by many different
Yeah.
stuffs. They were really thinking. The best example is taking the people who works in the and study the pharmacologist.
Yes.
Yeah. And now in today's world, they are so much hyper specialized that we can feel completely lost um, and taken apart by all those hyper specialized discoveries that are not seen together in a nice
Right.
discourse or topic and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I view it How do you feel about that? But that would be,
Mhm.
that would mean it's kind of an unsolved problems, or balance things. We can maybe
Right.
it's another way to make the link with what we've discussed in the beginning of our episode. It's another way of saying or seeing the balance of the opposites. Like we need both,
Right.
but not at the
Yeah.
same time in the same moment. And I think, or I see, or I feel the same with the diversity of the population and their, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, two thoughts. Uh, the first one, I don't know if you agree with that. Like there's certain historians that argue that the time of the genius is over. Like there will be no more Leonardo da Vinci. There will be no more
Yeah.
Newton. Like these, like so like well versed in so many different sciences and so such a deep understanding because we've just, as arrogant as that sounds, like understood too much about the world to kind of consolidate all that knowledge at this point in one person anymore. And I think there's truth to it, but I like your take on it that we still need the generalists and it still
Mm-hmm.
comes in waves and we still need these abstraction levels and people understanding these crossroads. And I think to stick to science, you see the words transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary pop up so much more because I think people are understanding that it's not helping anymore to be that specific all the time, right? You still need it,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to put it somehow a level higher again.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe somewhat disconnected, but it kind of reminded me what you said about that. And just to that word genius, there's a famous musician, Brian Eno. I don't know if you heard of him. He's like more of an
Yeah.
ambient sound designer. And I think he said something very smart. Like he kind of introduced that word of genius, saying that like if you look at any geniuses in history, they have always been in a scene, in a society where so many other smart people were around them and they just happen to like do that one thing or like accumulate a couple things together that just made them stand out even more, but they're kind of just the result of the society, the environment around them. Very rarely do you see in history that like there's really one person somewhere just in a village with no one around them coming up with all of these genius ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's typically like the whole scene around them. And I think it's a very nice way of thinking about it and kind of
Mm-hmm.
combining these things that we're like still working together and accumulating knowledge together. And just like sometimes it just, I guess it's just also easier for us as a society to just say, okay, Mozart was the greatest and just call it a day, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there's so much around him that inspired him to write that music, right?
Yeah, totally agree. It's yeah, it's so interesting. It's infinite.
It is for sure.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, anyway, I mean, it might be the right words to end the conversation. I really hope we're gonna have the chance to talk again about all those topics. But yeah,
Same, my friend.
thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and your advice about all the topics we've tackled. I mean, yeah, appreciate it a lot and really enjoyed the conversation, even though my English was a little bit struggling at the time. But yeah, that
Not at
was
all.
really nice.
Think you English is also second language for me, right? Like, but I feel like I understood you fairly well. And even though we talked about such abstract and like deeply emotional, but also deeply philosophical topics,
Yeah,
that are, as you said yourself, not always easy or even impossible to put into language sometimes. So
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really
Thank you very
appreciate the
much,
open-mindedness.
Sascha. Yeah, you too. Me too.
Great.
Thank
Talk
you.
soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon and have a great day, Sascha. Thank you very much.
Same. Thanks.
Bye bye.